Okay, everybody. I'm here. Welcome to Tea with Tina. 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Eastern on Tuesdays. We are nailing it. There are a couple people arriving. That brings me great joy. We're obviously going to wait a little bit to see if a few more people arrive. Get in here, folks. Get in there early. Vote early, donate often. I don't remember how that goes, but crowd drives a crowd. So let's create an online virtual crowd. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Hi, Lauren. Hi, Barbara. There's just so many lovely faces here. It brings me great joy. Brings me great joy. Oh, there's hearts. Listen, we're already up to a great start, folks. We're already crushing it. And I did not make tea again today, so maybe I'm failing at this. I don't know. But I don't drink a lot of tea, to be truthful, especially not, I drink a lot of tea in the winter time at night to make myself feel all cozy. But in the middle of the day, as spring looms out the window, which is dangerous to say as a Minnesotan in March, but I'm drinking coffee today instead of tea because I need it. Need that second cup today. I'm normally just a 1 cup gal, but today I've opted for the second cup. Hey friends, welcome. Hi Lisa. Also, these Yeti cups are outrageously strong. And by that I mean, if I put the lid on this thing, it will be this piping hot for hours. Hours. It's a little crazy. Blows my mind. I got mine on Amazon on sale because the Yetis are expensive as hell. But I got this one for fairly reasonably priced and it keeps my coffee warm all morning. You know when I do that thing where I set it down and then forget it's there and then try to come back and drink it 20 minutes later, but it's disgusting at that point? Yes, this helps save me from that. And bonus, dishwasher safe. Listen, friends. Okay, we're going to get started and hopefully more people will come, but it's a busy world and a crazy life, so we'll see. It might just be us today, but hi, everybody. Welcome to Tea with Tina. Thanks for being here. I'm endlessly grateful. I was working on my outline for today, what I wanted to talk to y'all about and how I wanted to have this conversation, and I paused halfway through because I was creating a session for you all similar to last week where I started by sharing some content and some things that I believe about being a woman in the world and then tried to facilitate a discussion with y'all afterward. And I believe in that. I think that's important. I think that's meaningful. I'm excited to continue to do that for y'all. I want to help you navigate the world as women. I want to share meaningful things that make you think. I want to teach you things. I want to create community. But I also want to be honest. I also want to be real. I also want to help. I've told you all this before. I'm on a mission to help women feel less alone in the world. That is my purpose in life. And I think a lot of us are feeling alone right now. I think a lot of us are feeling stressed and exhausted and scared and concerned and overwhelmed and list the number of adjectives here. I feel like there's a lot going on for us right now. And to every single Tuesday come on here and present to you this new vision of Tina's world, this content about being women in the world, without acknowledging that the world we actually live in is currently very, very different than the one we're used to. I don't know. That just doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel kind, because I feel like we're all living in a different world and talking about that feels important. So with that being said, I want to talk to you about what's happening to us today. I want to have a real, honest, kind, community-driven conversation about how we're doing in the madness. And next week we'll return to actual content and to talking about things outside of our current reality that we have no control over. I'm not done doing that, but I just feel like balance is important. So I think we can have a conversation about the realities of our world without getting lost in the negativity. I feel like it is possible for us to share and process and create space for the emotions that we're feeling without getting lost in them. It doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. We're not going to have the world's saddest conversation today. But I do think it's important to have an honest one. And I think we can do that without getting lost. I think we can do that without turning the sunshine off and crawling under a blanket to feel sorry for ourselves. I genuinely believe that we can be honest and positive at the same time, or at least get to positivity through honesty. That's my belief in the world. And so that's what I want to do. I want us to talk about how we're doing. Rawly, honestly, openly, I want us to talk about how we're doing with everything that we're experiencing right now. So to start that conversation, here's what I'd love. If you are willing to be vulnerable with me, I would love for you in our adorable little chat feature here to talk to us about what you're going through right now. Maybe you're crushing this work from home life and you feel super purposeful and motivated. Great. Tell us about that. Maybe trying to homeschool your children turns out to be very exhausting while you also have a job, and that's really stressful. Tell us about that. Maybe you and your partner are having a hard time being together all of the time. Tell us about that. Maybe you live alone and you're having a hard time being alone all of the time because there's only so many conversations your pets are willing to have with you. Tell us about that. While you type, I'm gonna tell you about what's happening in my head. If I'm gonna ask you to be vulnerable with us, I will go first. That only seems fair. And where else? What a place to be vulnerable, but live on the internet for anybody to come watch and see. So I would love for you to type and go there with me, but while you do so, I'm gonna share a little bit about what's happening for me in my world. And then if you have questions while I'm talking, type them into the chat feature at any point and we'll circle back to answer them. So we've got plenty of time to answer questions afterward, but type them in there and we'll get back to them, I promise. So I feel frozen. That is how I feel right now. And that's why I felt so uncomfortable to get on here every Tuesday and put makeup on that day and come on here with all this sunshine and positivity coming out of my face, being like, aren't women great? And we are, but I feel frozen. And not Frozen 1, I'm discovering I have magical powers and I'm feeling a little chilly and overwhelmed. No, Frozen 2, I now know how powerful my powers are and I'm lost in the abyss feeling cold permanently and forever because I can't get out of how frozen I am. Frozen. I feel stuck. I feel stalled. And I'm watching a bunch of other people around me not feel that way, which is making me feel a little alone, making me feel a little crazy, making me feel like I'm the only one, but I know that is not true. Everything about my world, I'm sure this is true for you all also, everything about my world stopped in 5 days. In a matter of 5 days, I went from having a very active business to business completely freezing. In a matter of 5 days, I went from I travel once or 4 times a week to don't know when I'll get on a plane again. I went from being in a long distance marriage to now I see my husband all day, every day. Everything about my world paused and changed in 5 days. And anytime you watch the news, it changes again. Nothing is constant anymore. Everything except that we're here, right? That's the constant part, is that we are just here. And that's different for us. I watched the news last week, all Sunday morning, not this most recent Sunday, but 2 Sundays ago, I watched the news all morning. And this, I think, is the first time in my life I had an actual panic attack. I don't actually know what this feels like, so for those of you that have had panic attacks in the past, correct me if I'm wrong. But I watched all the news, turned it off, went to my room to change clothes because James and I were going to go for a walk. And while I was in my room, I noticed that my heart was just racing. I looked down at my Apple Watch because I'm bougie like that, and it said, your heart rate is 110 beats per minute. And I was like, okay, well, that's not normal. And I went and laid down and used my little breathing thing on my watch for 10 minutes because I had to physically calm my body from flipping out about all of the uncertainty and all of the terrifying news reports because my body just was overwhelmed as much as my brain has been overwhelmed. I'm feeling really sorry for myself. A couple times a day I have a moment where I'm throwing myself my own little pity party about missing my life and about missing my friends, my people, missing being around other human beings, about missing my alone time. And then as soon as I start to feel sorry for myself, I have the flip reaction where I feel like crap and feel all of the guilt, because compared to so many other humans, I have so many things to be grateful for. You know, we keep talking about staying home, but there are people who don't have a home. There are people who feel unsafe in their home. My whole job stopped, but I didn't lose my job. There are people who like straight up don't have a job or an income anymore. And then I feel the weight of all those problems and all that stress, and I feel exhausted, and I feel badly that I haven't been doing more to be helpful for those people, and I want to help, but I don't really know how to help because I don't want to get sick, because everything I read about the virus makes me terrified to get it. So then I'm frozen again. I don't understand why landlords have been able to cancel rent and the IRS has been able to cancel tax day, but periods are still happening. I'm just saying, Mother Nature, I feel like we could have done away with that for a minute. We could have just paused menstrual cycles for a minute. I feel like that would have been a delightful shift given all of this happening in the world. I also find that the FaceTiming, right, we're all finding ourselves more connected here and more connected on our screens, whether it be through FaceTime, through Zoom. Turns out this technology that's been able to connect us from a distance for a really long time, we're now using for its purposes, which is really dope. But I don't know if any of you are feeling this. I'm finding it to be really exhausting to look at a screen all of the time, to only be able to get human interaction right here. And I find myself getting to a place where I can't anymore. I can't text anymore. I can't FaceTime or Zoom anymore because it's draining in a whole nother way. But it's also the only way we can socially interact. And so that's a weird place for me to be. I feel a lot of pressure to use this time with purpose, right? Like I should be like learning a new skill. I should be losing all the weight I've wanted to lose. And then when I don't have the motivation to do those things, I kind of feel like a failure, right? I feel like I'm wasting this time, right? Then I should be doing something more purposeful with it. I also have not watched Tiger King, and I also feel plagued every single day by the indecision of whether or not to watch it. Should I participate in this absolutely crazy thing that's happening on the internet, or should I wait for 2 more days for Netflix to release something else that will make all of us lose our mind on social media? I don't know, y'all. I don't know if I can handle it. I don't know if I want to handle it. I just don't know. Every day, I wonder this. I'm also genuinely afraid, which is not something that as a straight white person in the United States of America, I feel all of the time, right? Like war-torn countries, people who are often the only person who looks like them in a room. I think people with marginalized identities have to feel afraid a lot more often than those of us with a lot of privilege, so I don't think a lot of us are used to feeling this scared as much as we are right now, because it's scary. Things that for us have been consistent and comfortable and safe are question marks. So I feel smart sometimes, and I feel really dumb sometimes, and I feel in control and completely out of control. I feel motivated and I feel lazy, and I feel sane and I feel crazy. Look at me, a poet. I'm frozen. And there are days where that feels okay, and there are days where that does not. But I just, I wanted to make sure to pause and talk about reality. So I know a lot of you are already putting comments in. I'm going to scroll back up in a second and read them. But if you haven't yet, I'd love for you to tell us, what are you feeling? Good, bad, otherwise? Maybe specifically, where are you feeling alone? Where are you feeling like you might be the only one who feels that way? Because what I've learned from spending all of my time with women is that more often than not, we are not alone. We've just been taught to feel like we are, because we've been taught not to talk about the hard things. So I think when we talk about the hard things, we feel less alone. So type it in here and we'll talk about it. And I'm going to scroll all the way up, and I want you to come with me and stick with me. And if you've already written one thing, write 7 more, because you're likely going to serve as a voice for other people who don't know how to type what they're actually feeling. So, Jennifer's offered to send me a tea. Thank you. Feeling nervous about my academics during this awkward transition to e-learning. That is so real. That is so real. Throw a heart or a like or a something in there if you are a student who's like, I didn't sign up to be in an online university experience. I see commercials for University of Phoenix literally 3 times a day on television, but didn't sign up for that because that's not the education that I wanted. But now that's the only way for me to get a degree or to pass this semester. Your professors probably don't even know what they're doing on top of that because they weren't prepared for this either. So all of that uncertainty and stress has to feel so overwhelming. It's just not what we expected it to be. So I hear that. Yeah, Lauren says she's mourning the loss of canceled events and trips, but trying to stay hopeful. Yeah, mourning, grieving. I think a lot of those words apply to several of us right now, that we're seeing things disappear, whether they be work, money related, whether they be family trips or solo adventures, whether they be even, I don't know if any of y'all are experiencing this, but like it's supposed to be baseball season right now. Like, it's supposed to be baseball season. I'm supposed to be able to go sit outside at a baseball game in the 60-degree weather in the sunshine and feel spring come upon me. We can't do that anymore. And so mourning the loss of the things that we don't have, I think is real and powerful and appropriate. So thank you for sharing, Lauren. Oh, somebody brought you cookies, Liam. That's amazing. And you got to have a social distancing conversation. I love that. I love that. Yeah, here's more stuff about how school is hard. Yep. Missing my students, that's so real. Teaching high school, teaching elementary school, teaching in general, being a student affairs professional, I feel like a lot of us are missing the interactions that we have with our students or just the people that we work with in general, right? The water cooler time is very real. It is very stressful. Lauren, I miss hugs. It's like my Olaf analogy all the way. Like, I'm Olaf and I love warm hugs. Like, yes, missing the opportunity to actually touch other human beings is powerful. Yeah. Lisa Ann, I see you here. Living in Northern Virginia, so we've been ramping up for a few weeks, but the hammer did come down yesterday. And all the positivity is not helping. It actually makes me feel worse. I just, like, positivity is amazing. And I do not want us to get lost in the negativity, but pretending like there's a silver lining of every single situation, I think is inappropriate. I don't think it's kind. I don't think it's real. There are some things that just suck for a minute. And this is allowed to suck for a minute. It's stressful and it's hard. And I don't think it has to feel positive all of the time. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Samantha talked here about feeling connected to people, but also want to be alone, but grateful for the connection, but enjoying being, right? So like there's this split where we want to be around people, we want to feel connected, but I don't know about y'all, but every once in a while I need some time to just sit by myself, and whether I'm breathing or crying or doing a puzzle or just pausing for a minute, I feel like I need some time by myself, but I also don't want to let other people down and don't want to miss the opportunity to connect. So that's a really powerful dichotomy we're sort of chilling in right now. Oh my gosh, Allison's fiance lives or works in an emergency room. So that's obviously a whole nother level of terrifying, right? To have a healthcare professional who's literally saving lives right now in a worst case scenario situation. And I would imagine, Allison, that's like, you must be so proud of your person for being a hero, like a genuine hero, but also so scared at the same time. That's a lot to carry around. It's a lot of stress. If any of you have healthcare humans in your life, reply to Allison's comment, let her know that she's not by herself, because there's no way that she's the only one. Not seeing an end in sight has been really hard, especially for our planners. Yeah, I bet not being able to prepare for this is when this is over. Like, I just have to survive this for the next blank days and everything will be fine. I don't know about y'all, but so much of the conversation early on, 2 weeks was thrown out. right? Like if you have symptoms, 2 weeks. If you just got off a plane, quarantine for 2 weeks. Like there was so much 2 weeks language that's just sort of what I adopted in my brain as an understanding of time, right? I was like, okay, 2 weeks. Okay. And here we are on day 16 in my quarantined household, and there is no end in sight. There's a whole month ahead of us now at this point, but even then there's so many unknowns, and so like the information changes so fast. I follow a comedian on Instagram. His name is Boris. And Boris straight up said, "Oh, I'm so dumb. I can't believe I read the latest version of the news. It was 30 minutes old," which is so true because every 30 minutes it changes. And so how can we prepare? Because even once you've accepted a timeline, it is so very likely to shift. So that's stressful. Abby's talking about sharing space with her partner. Yep. Taking advantage of going outside feels important. Meditate, getting a good morning routine. Yes, I have recently decided that I'm going to get up before my partner gets up because that means just a little bit of alone time here by myself in the apartment, which is one of my favorite things. It doesn't mean I don't love him. It just means that this is an adjustment, and I'm used to having alone time every day, and to not have it makes me feel a little stir crazy. So I totally understand that. So lots of us feeling a little guilty and feeling sad when other people are struggling. That's real. Oof. Living alone, y'all, is a whole nother thing, right? For those of us that have partners and children and family members and friends who live with us, like that can get stressful, but then to not have those humans around all the time, to not have those built-in distractions, I think would be challenging. We have a friend who has FaceTimed us every night since we've been quarantined, just for like a 10-minute, how was your day? Ours was okay. Good night phone call, because she lives alone. And so that has been some structure that she has brought to her life. I don't know if she's watching, but hey, Betsy, because she's living alone. And it's just, I think it helps feel like she's going to bed with just a little bit of not alone time. And so that's been a helpful thing because I think it's really challenging. Ooh, Laura's comment says, "I get stressed by the people who don't take this as seriously as I do. I'm terrified of my family members dying." This is so real. Both of these things, 2 at a time, or 1 at a time, because there's 2 that are very important. Let's talk about the terrifying articles about the people who have actually contracted the virus and what they're going through, because it's a lot, y'all. It is a lot to process. Part of me wants to tell you that if you haven't gone there yet, that you should not. But the other part of me really wants you to, because I think it's a way to help us reframe and take it seriously. Right? Like for so long, we were told that it wasn't a young people thing. Like if you're under 60, you're going to be fine. But over 40% of the hospital beds that are filled with people who are under 50 years old, somewhere between 20 and 50. So like, and I hear a lot of people, my family included, being like, let me just get this virus. Like, let me just get it and be done with it so that I have it, it's in my system, and we can all move on, which I totally understand. But then I read the articles of the humans who have had those experiences, or people who have lost their humans, and I flip out and my heart races all over again because it's not the flu, it's not a cold, and I don't want to lose people. So that's really scary to think about, and also darn near impossible not to think about. Especially when you see people not taking it seriously. I am so grateful that today is the last day of March, because it means, well, normally it would mean that baseball's coming, but that's not the point. But because it means that we can stop seeing spring break stuff happening on the internet. Like, I cannot with the people who are like living their best life on a beach surrounded by other humans trying to go drink in a bar and go to an EDM concert because they think we're all taking this a little too seriously. Like, it makes my brain explode. But it's also the way people get information. It also depends how the information is shared with them. Like, I'm trying to be patient and give grace, because not everybody has the ability to sit at home and watch the news all day in the way that I do. And so I'm trying to be respectful of the fact that they might not have access to the same information that I do, but also find myself feeling very stressed when I see groups of people. This has become my new thing, which is so dumb. It's so dumb, but it's just like my brain reacting. When we go on our walk every day, James and I walk next to each other because we're long past social distancing in this house. That's not a thing. So we walk right next to each other. And then when we see other people approaching, we'll go from this to this, right? We'll like walk in a line, a row instead of a column. Yeah, I did that right. We'll walk behind one another to create more space on the path. But then other people don't do it. And I'm like, listen, I know that you and your person are in a conversation, but I think you can talk to each other when one of you's behind each other for 10 seconds. It just feels like the right thing to do. Just give everybody a little bit more space. People aren't doing it, and then it makes me crazy. This is what my brain has decided to fixate on, friends. This is where we are. Barbara says frozen installed are great words. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. JC says if you get stressed enough, your periods will stop. If that was a thing, I would be a grateful human. And for those of you for whom that's a thing, I'm hoping that you are enjoying some period-free time. That is not the way my mind or body works. And Karen, which is what I call my period, is present, regardless of how stressed I am. So, fun fact, that's just what's happening in my world. But I'm excited for you if you get that break. Teaching 6th grade online, Jenny, that must be crazy. Last minute meetings, yes. All of a sudden you get a 10-minute notification like, you're supposed to be in a Zoom. And I'm like, I'm not prepared. Okay, I gotta get ready to do this. Yeah, that's not an easy thing to do. Christine says, do not get sucked in. I'm assuming you're talking about Tiger King, and I appreciate that. Yeah, screens are different. Ooh, Lauren talks about feeling extra guilt about declining plans for virtual meetings. That's real, because like everybody knows, right? Like ditching plans now feels like a totally other thing. Like my husband sent a Marco Polo to a friend and was like, hey, I know you're not working, so you have literally no excuse not to talk to me. Which, on the one hand, is very real and true. Like, it's not like I can be like, sorry, I'm like so busy tonight. Everybody knows that's not true. Everybody knows. None of us are busy. Right? Like, but simultaneously, to be able to put up boundaries about when and how you want to exist on the internet and have screen time, right? But to do so respectfully, and again, that balance of I want to be alone and I want to be with people, but I don't want to do it on a screen. So no, it's a lot to juggle. It's a lot to juggle. Setting some timers on your screen time, that's super smart. I miss my sisters. Mara, I don't know if I'm saying your name correctly, but that's really valid. I'm just gonna pause on that one for a minute. Because for those of you that, whether you were living in a house or hanging out in a suite or saw your sisters and friends every single day on campus and now can't, it's a lot to process. Talk about your whole world changing in 5 days. Yeah, you're not crazy. That's really hard. That's really hard. Thank you for sharing. Oh, interesting, they're trading the way grading works. Of course they are, because they have to. This is fascinating. Samantha, I totally agree with you. I do not have children, but that's got to be a whole nother process right now. To be a woman in the world is one thing. To be a partner in the world is a whole nother thing. To be alone in the world is a whole nother thing. To have children is a whole other thing. So shout out to the moms and parents and caregivers in the room, because that's got to be a whole nother thing. Oh yeah, to protect a baby, that's gotta be really hard, because you probably also want some help and some love for the baby, but you can't get it, which is really stressful and exhausting. Sherry's talking here about feeling paralyzed. Focus, momentum, yes. Yeah, yep. We talk about this a lot in my household because my husband has ADHD. And so like the way in which we work is very different. I can't work in silence, but if we have music on or anything, it has the potential to distract him and take him away from what he needs to do to function. But we only live in 1,300 square feet. And so how can we, and the Wi-Fi only goes so far down the hallway, right? So trying to figure out ways to help each other focus, but also trying not to expect focus from ourselves, because it's hard to focus when the world's falling apart outside of your window. Yep, that's valid. Katie's struggling having her boyfriend being around as much as he is. That does not mean that your relationship is not great. It's just a lot. It's just a lot. I'm willing to bet there are some people in here who have been married for decades and are still having a little bit of a time adjusting to this human being around all of the time. So I think that's a totally normal thing. I don't think you're crazy. I think it's challenging. And I think it's challenging. Oh, Destiny's here. Hey, sis. The half marathon trainers, y'all, first of all, respect. But second of all, it's got to feel like a totally different thing. Oh, yeah, trips being postponed. Lizzie is preparing to enter a healthcare profession in a couple of weeks. We appreciate you. You're amazing. So thank you for doing that for all of us. We're really grateful. Oh, this is powerful. Kelsey. Hi, Kelsey. Kelsey says, my husband and I are working through this because it's so hard to feel like you should be so connected, because you can be. But you also need alone time. We don't have a lot of space. We're alone where we live, so it's been hard to be open and honest. And yes. I am one of the people who is very lucky and blessed to be married to the genuine love of my life. I'm obsessed with him. He's my favorite person. But I spend half of my life on the other side of the country from James, right? Like I am alone all of the time. And we talk on the phone all of the time. We FaceTime all of the time. But now we're in a spot where, like, because we're so used to talking on the phone, there's a bunch of communication that would happen in our normal patterns that isn't happening now, just because we're not used to sitting on the couch and talking about our day, especially when we spend our whole day together, right? Like, so the way that we communicate is totally different, and trying to figure out how to communicate. And I don't know if any of y'all are experiencing this, but in moments of frustration, I find myself talking myself down from having a conversation or a confrontation, because I don't want to, like, disturb the peace that we've created, right? Like, because there's nowhere for anyone to go. And so if we were to get in a silly fight about nothing that is super important, like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna, like, go for a walk? Well, we already did that, right? Like, there's just nowhere to go. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to be alone and process. And so I find myself being like, well, I guess it really doesn't matter if this happened. We don't need to make this a big thing, because I don't want to disturb the peace, which also feels gross, because I feel like I'm stopping myself from saying things that maybe should be said, but I'm trying to find the balance between communicating and over communicating, or the balance between making sure that we are being kind to each other. So anyway, maybe that might just be me, but that's something that I've been thinking a lot about. Oh, Taylor's here. Hi. Denise is talking about sort of switching back and forth between wishing somebody else is there and being glad nobody else is there. Yeah, I bet that is a very, very real thing. Oh, Roberta, I'm so glad. Roberta typed that there's real comfort in seeing that my feelings are the same as everyone else. Not that misery loves company, because it's different than that. This is not just like, life sucks, let's all cry about it. Although, yes, but I think there's power in empathy and in feeling like you're not alone and you're not crazy. Because for so long, women have been taught that all of our emotions and all of our thoughts are crazy, and they're not. Turns out we're not crazy. And I think it's helpful to see other people not being crazy with you. Okay, thank you for that. I'm not the only single file walker. I appreciate you so much for that. That makes me feel less crazy. So as you keep typing, what questions do you have for me and your sisters? What are some things that you are wondering about? Or some things that you are looking for tips or suggestions or help with? Because it is valid and purposeful to vent and make sure that we're not feeling alone. But I also want you to be able to take something away that feels helpful outside of community. I think it is helpful enough to feel like you are not alone, because you're not. But if there are other things that we as your sisters and friends can help with, we want to help. So keep typing, but if you have any of those things, make sure you put them in here. Sherry's feeling caught in a catch-22. I totally hear that. There's littles and bigs fighting each other in here. That makes my heart explode with joy. Annie, talking about working from home with kids and you're alternating schedules with your partner. I've had a couple of friends tell me that they had to, like, literally divide and conquer and be like, okay, I will work from 8 to noon while you watch the children, and then we need to switch. And, like, had to get their work to try to schedule meetings around those time frames, because it's a whole other thing to work from home, and then a whole other thing to work from home with little humans around who like need your attention and your help to survive. So that's a very real thing. Ooh, weddings, professional conferences. That's powerful. That's real and scary. I hope I'm not on an episode of Snapped. I feel like they're going to have plenty of episodes to choose from coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So I think you might be safe, but we'll keep an eye out for you. This is a lot of love. Do you have any tips on how to still have good conversations with people who are living with their significant others or just roommates, even though we've been around each other all day for a while now? It's hard to find new things because we've all talked a lot already. That is so real. And I also think side part of this conversation is how do we have conversations about other things? Because we need to talk about this and we need to create space and understanding and empathy. But I don't know about y'all, but when I get on the phone with my friends, I feel like it's feasible for us to just get doom and gloom and sad about this for 45 minutes and then be like, so outside of this, how are you? But anyway, we'll come back to that. How to have new conversations, I think, for me, stems a lot around the kind of media that we're absorbing, right? So James and I are reading different things. He's a listener of podcasts in a way that I am not. And so for me to teach him or talk to him about the book I'm reading or to ask him a question that the book made me think about has been really helpful. And then for him to tell me what he's listening to, what he learned on his podcast and how that shifted things for him or what that feels like has been really cool. It's also been trying really hard to create distance, like to put in my earbuds and turn up my music and not listen to him be on the phone so that when he is around later, I can be like, so what was your call about? And genuinely not know the answer. Trying to create some of that distance and separation. The media also includes TV, so to process, right? Like I've been fairly vocal about this, that I have discovered Boy Meets World is on Disney Plus in its entirety. And so like, we'll watch an episode and be like, what do you think about Mr. Feeney? Do you think Mr. Turner's a better teacher? Do you think Mr. Feeney's a better teacher? Like letting those kinds of things guide our conversation and move us into a new place. That is the beauty of watching something like Tiger King or whatever is on Netflix, for those of you who do not have small children around, is that there is community and having an experience together that is not our normal everyday life. For those of you that do have kiddos around, I'm sure you are wearing down on the list of Disney and Pixar films that you can watch, but maybe you'll get some of them memorized soon. I don't know. I think consuming different media and talking about it has been very helpful. I think that gives me some space to talk about other things. So I hope that helps. And if other of you have tips, reply to Katie, because it's a really great question. How do you not get, like, how do we keep from getting lost in the coronavirus, if at all, but also still trying to move forward and talk about other things? Is I've started to set a timer. So we can talk about this and how we feel for 10, 15 minutes. And then at that point, we'll do a check-in. Are we ready to move on, or do we still need to talk about this? Because you don't want to cut people off. People are venting. They're carrying a lot right now. But the point of this technology and all of these FaceTime, Zoom, happy hours, whatever, is not just to vent about how hard this is. It's also just to care about each other and to learn about our lives. So I have found that is helpful to say we have 15 minutes. And if that's not enough time, we'll keep going. And if it is enough time, then we'll move on and tell me about your family and tell me about the media you're consuming and tell me about your life. So I hope that's helpful also. Thanks, Laura. I do my hair once a week now, so it's healthier because I'm stopped styling it any other time than when I am on here. So thanks for thinking it's pretty. I really appreciate that. Kate is asking about convention. I have not heard anything. This is one of those questions that I will have you defer to our experts who actually work at IHQ and make these important decisions. I know that several groups, fraternities and sororities, are asking all of those questions right now. I think many of them are trying to wait until they have as much information as possible before they have to make that decision, but I have not heard anything about Alpha Gamma Delta convention. I'm sure that they will keep us posted and tell us as soon as they've made a decision. So, but you can always message IHQ on Facebook and ask that question and see what they obviously have more information than I do, but that's a great question. Oh, they're going to decide by May 1st. Cool, cool, cool. Tita, keep scrolling. It's important to keep scrolling. Oh, hi, Anna. It's nice to meet you too. Oh, we're talking, the Happiness Lab. That's cool. I love that. Some plays to create sound that help people focus. I love that. Samantha Handy, if TGIF came back, I would lose my mind. I also just recently learned that Step by Step in its entirety is on Hulu. I'm really Boy Meets World focused right now, but just know that that is an option for you. Okay, friends, I don't see any other questions, but I'm not signing off right now. I just, so keep typing if you're typing. Here's the point. Here's why we had this conversation today as opposed to a different conversation today. Number one, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. The way that you're feeling isn't wrong. The way that you are processing isn't wrong. The way that you are coping isn't wrong. You are not wrong. You know, unless you're like outside licking your hand and high-fiving strangers. Okay, then maybe that's not ideal. Maybe that's where we cross into the line of that might not be right. But outside of that, you're not wrong, okay? And you're not doing this wrong. For those of you with kiddos at home, I can only imagine how easy it would be to slip into I'm a terrible parent, I'm doing this wrong. But there's no right way to parent full-time while you work, while you teach, while you do a million things, while you're not allowed to leave your home, right? Like, you're not doing this wrong. There is not a wrong way to survive this. Again, outside of intentionally passing the virus on to other human beings or just being a jerk in general. But also, if you're having a day where you're a little cranky and on edge, you're not wrong. There's a lot to be cranky about. And I think the less we try to shut down all of the feelings that we're having, and the more we just let ourselves feel them, the more we can work through them. So you're not doing this wrong. You're not a bad person. You're not a bad parent. You're not a bad business person. You're not bad at your job. You're not a bad spouse if you're feeling irritated. You're not doing this wrong. Okay? And maybe more importantly than all of the other things, I hope that what this was helpful for today, my hope is that you know that you are not alone. You may be in very unique circumstances that is difficult for other people to understand. I cannot understand what it feels like to have a partner who works in the healthcare industry and is on the front lines every day. But I don't want you to feel like you have to go through it by yourself. It's kind of the whole point of sorority, in fact, is to make sure that we never had to be alone. Not even in the bathroom. Like, not even sometimes when you want to be alone, do you get to be alone or should you have to be? So even if you are up against some circumstances that nobody else currently watching this video or who will watch this video later could understand, you are not by yourself. There are people who care. There are people who are here to listen. And I hope that that's what you take away from today, that all the feelings you're having, positive and negative, you're not necessarily feeling in isolation, as isolated as we are. Women need women. And so thank you for needing this conversation today. Thank you for making other women feel less alone by sharing. There's power in that. So I'm really grateful to all of you who shared, and I hope that you keep doing it. Get back in here, reply to more comments, help more people feel less alone. That is the entire point. I'm going to see if there's any other questions right here before we sign off. Trying to build normal sleeping patterns is really fun. I love that. Is there a habit you've been trying to build during our new normal? It's hard not to fall into the need to be productive during this time, but it does serve as a hard to rest for life. That's 100. I didn't read that correctly, but I read it correctly. That's 100% valid. For me, it has been cooking. For me, that has been something really helpful because in my normal travel life, I don't get to cook very often. I eat at restaurants and drive-thrus and things like that. And so for me, the habit has been like getting up and making myself a smoothie in the morning and being able to sort of be in charge with cooking meals all day. I will also say for my women in the place and my men in the place who do all of the cooking in your home, it is so much work. to cook every single meal that your family eats. There's so much time and energy that goes into figuring out what you need and what you need to buy from the grocery store and how to make sure that you can feed everybody in a way. Like, it's a lot of work, y'all. It is a lot of work. So bow down to all of you who've been doing this for a very long time. Welcome to my revelation. But that has been a habit for me that makes me feel like I'm a little bit in control, because I'm not in control of so many parts of my life, but I can cook myself a meal that makes me feel good and nourished. And so that has been the habit that I've been trying to get into. I'm also trying to write every day. Hit or miss with that one, but writing for me is really healthy, even if it's just like tears streaming down my face, like, this is so frustrating. Like, that's fine. And some days it's, I don't know. I like to think it's poetry, but so writing has been helpful for me too. So those are some habits that I'm trying to create. How would you go about reframing what productive is and means during this time? Lizzie, that's a great question. I don't know. I am still working on this because I find myself comparing myself to everybody else on the internet and about how productive they seem to be, even though obviously like the internet's not real. But so for me, it's about setting tangible, realistic goals. Okay, so I could make a giant to-do list, like a full page in my bullet journal, like giant to-do list of all the things that I could and should be doing. But then by the end of my day, I look and see I only checked like 3 or 4 of those things off, and then I should on myself all night and be like, well, I should have done this today, and I should have done this today, so I'm basically a failure and completely worthless. But that's not helpful or healthy. So instead of like tangibly creating shame for myself on a to-do list, I've started to create to-do lists on Post-its. You can only fit so much on a normal Post-it size. And so I put 3 or 4 things. I still have my giant to-do list. I just pick 3 or 4 things off that giant to-do list and put it on a Post-it. And then that for me is like my guide for the day. And it feels like a much more manageable way to feel productive without the shame of not getting things done. So that is a small thing that I've been trying to do, but I think we'll keep working on that one because it's not easy. Oh, Denise says productivity is about self-care. I love that. I love that. And I love all of you. I really do. I'm really grateful for your time today. I'm really grateful for your honesty and your vulnerability. And I'm really grateful for that we have a community to exist in, so we don't have to feel so siloed and alone. So as always, I would love to chat with you if you want to talk about any of the things that happened here today, if you're having a hard time feeling connected to humans, if you, anything you want to talk about, I would love to talk to you about. So you can follow me on Instagram at Tina Rae Van. You can follow me, you can go to my website, which is tinarayvan.com. You can send me an email, which is tina@tinarayvan.com. I have a brand. I can clearly take myself very seriously. But honestly, if you want to chat, I want you to know that you can get in touch with me. You can also get in touch with the women at IHQ who created this space for us to be able to have these kinds of conversations. I also hope that you Facebook message any of the women that you saw on here today that made you feel less crazy. Shoot them a note or a message and thank them for sharing, and make sure that you tell them that they helped you today. Because I think we could all use a little bit of that kind of love and validation. So be kind to each other, be kind to the rest of the world, be patient with yourself, and thank you for spending your time with me today. I really appreciate it. Be safe, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.